Welcome back to Weebology. Thanks, y'all, for coming back to class. I am your over-caffeinated Professor Ricky.
Hey, y'all. I am your other Professor Ethan.
Yeah, I had a lot of caffeine today just to make it this late into the evening. It's been a long, long day, but I am ready to talk about some anime question mark?
Definitely anime question mark. So if you guys are following us on our Instagram at weebology.podcast, you will have seen that I posted a photo of Batman Ninja.
Yes.
And I asked a few questions in the caption, whatever. Is this anime?
And it got us thinking. It's a topic we've wanted to talk about for a long time. Where does the line of quote-unquote anime end? You know, in the modern era of anime, when it's become more mainstream, it's had a more international presence. So more and more studios are starting to produce what looks, sounds, and feels like anime. Back in the day, back when the big three were out and when they were super hype, anime had a very clear line. It was, animation of a certain style that came from Japan. And a lot of people will still prescribe to that particular definition. But in 2020, Ethan, it's kind of blurrier than that, ain't it?
It is, and I think it should be.
Okay.
I would prefer, I don't know, I just don't like all the very defined black and white lines, saying this is anime, this isn't anime. I just think that kind of gatekeeping does not do anime any justice, and I think people that, for instance, are into the DC animated movies and stuff like that, in my opinion, those should be considered anime, but they aren't.
I kind of understand why this exists, though, because that's the one thing when you wanted to, you brought this topic up, we should talk about things that are kind of anime adjacent. The reason why the gatekeeping exists, in my opinion, is because anime and its fandom have always, up to this point, felt niche. It's always felt like its own subculture in media and entertainment. And for a long time, you kind of felt, I don't want, special's the wrong word? I don't know, just in your own little pocket community. But now, as it's become so much more available and the streaming era is upon us in full force in the last maybe decade, I don't know, the gatekeeping is kind of, a way for the old school veteran fans to still feel like they're in some kind of pocket community. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's got to be part of it. I think anime is a kind of like an asylum for a lot of people that feel like they're on the outside of social groups and stuff like that. But to me, I don't think it does the genre as a whole or a medium per se a lot of favors to be like that in a lot of regards, because
that's kind of our whole mission though on this show is to make it less feel pocket and more accessible to all. So
I just think as time is progressing, it seems like it's heading more and more towards the mainstream, and that isn't necessarily a bad thing. I think back in the day when you had maybe 50 anime a year that came out, right? Because it was just harder to do and stuff like that, and it took more time.
I think it was an accessibility thing, too. A lot of them probably resided in Japan solely, and to get to the level of, say, Bleach or Naruto, to get over the sea, basically you had to be so big that the country itself of Japan could not contain it, The fan base was so outside of that. But now, every show, simulcasting, it comes on in Japan, it comes on around the world. So, there isn't really a need to gatekeep anymore, but it still exists. And I think that's kind of an interesting thing for me. Why would it still exist? Why does the gatekeeping exist?
Yeah, I think it's definitely like you're saying, just feeling like you're special in some regard, right? People that only read manga think that people that watch anime are assholes. People that use PCs exclusively think anyone that plays on Xbox or PS3 or PS4 are dingbats.
Console scrubs. Yeah, PC master race, baby.
Mongoloid. So it's I don't know. I just think it's trying to feel selective and feel kind of better than other people in some regards. But I don't know if it's all bad, if it's as bad as it sounds.
Right. I think, but what you said I think is important is that, it doesn't do the medium any favors, because if you gatekeep and kind of have that, anime is only this or only that, and if you believe anything else is anime, then you are not a true fan, then, it kind of, you're you're narrowing what the possibility of anime can be. You know, you're kind of forcing it as a community to stay in its lane, so to speak, when it has a lot more to offer, a lot more stories to tell if it's allowed as a style to branch out.
Right, and more runway. I think.
Yeah.
I think, you know, it would be hard to imagine a couple years ago, maybe in the, you know, early 2000s, early 90s, that a show like Kimetsu no Yaiba would come out with that kind of art. You know,
100%.
Art focus. I just don't. I think that if you consider only one style, you know, the only thing that constitutes anime, right? I just think you're going to limit yourself in the long run. And then, you know, especially like any community that is like holier than thou in a lot of ways, it feels like so selective. Like it's just less approachable for like a random guy to come in and say, wow, I actually kind of like this stuff.
Exactly.
You know?
And I think it's not just about the fans either. I think this is kind of segueing into what we wanted to do on this particular episode. It's not just about gatekeeping away from fans. It's gatekeeping away from companies, entertainment outlets, essentially, companies like DC, like Warner Brothers, to kind of tell them, hey, you're not allowed to make something in this style because you don't fit that mold. So with Batman Ninja, when Ethan brought it up, and it looks super hype, like even before I watched it, it looks so cool. But it's weird because it was a DC thing. You know, it was from a company that you would not expect a proper anime work to come from. So with this Batman Ninja, we watched it, we wanted to see what it's about, and with one question in mind: does it anime? Is this something we can consider bona fide anime? And I think this is a new segment.
And you might be asking
do.
yourself, do we English?
Do we English?
Answer, no.
You know this by now. Everyone
who's been
listening. We are not linguistes.
But before all this, I just want to say shout out to Pops for buying it.
Mr. Schaefer, thank you, Conley.
I did call out to him at one point that saying that, you know, we didn't have this movie and we needed it. So
and he finally bit that bullet and swiped that card, and we got ourselves a movie. I noticed his movie collection, dude. That is a robust movie collection.
Yes,
There's
it is.
so many movies on your dad's Apple account.
So I think I put it on like the want list or whatever, and it finally went on sale. So you bought it.
Finally snagged up that deal. But yeah, so we wanted to do this segment called Does It Anime? I think going forward, this will be a repeating thing. We want to start watching things that have the guts of anime, that feels like anime when you watch it. And we want to do a little bit of research and deliberation using our PhDs and our clear big brains
and Google
to make a decision on whether some piece of work animes or not. So today, as we've said a number of times, Batman Ninja. Ethan, how'd you feel about this movie?
So I love the movie.
Okay.
That's it.
I've
really
watched
nearly all of the DC Batman animated movies.
Mm-hmm.
I really think I'm literally missing like one or two, and it's just like either I missed it when it came out. So what I used to do is maybe I'm not gonna say this.
Do it. Yo, you brought it up. You have to say it. Bear it to the world.
Okay, whatever. This is about pirating, so just get ready.
Oh my God, come on.
So there was this Android app called Showbox.
Okay. I remember Showbox. Yeah.
And anytime a new DC film would come out, they would have it like that day.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
They were on their shit.
So I would just stream them like literally as they were coming out, and it would leave. Oh wow. It would literally tell you like when one was coming out pretty soon. Like it would tell you like be ready for this in a week or whatever.
We'll have it on here. We'll have it right
so
here. That's cool.
That was like super helpful to me for just being able to see all them. Obviously now we own them, so you can't really get me for it.
Yeah, now somebody paid money for it, so joke's on you.
Yeah,
pirates.
but I mean, I love this DC animation in general. Like well, first of all, bringing us a character such as Batman to life in an animated form, like
And this one, yeah, and
it's hard to like not like it, you know?
Right. And as someone who doesn't really frequent much of the DC animated movies, which I feel like I need to more because I love that old school, classic American cartoon animation style. That's some fun stuff. I have very nostalgic feelings for that kind of animation style. But this one was very unique, and it really felt like a love letter to Japanese culture, in only the way that maybe like a superhero movie like Batman can. And I have most pros, but there's a couple cons in giving a love letter like that, but we'll get into that a little later. But I would say this movie, it almost felt like I don't know, it felt like it was punching me in the face over and over again with its plot. It was very fast paced. It didn't feel like it was a very well explained, or like not a lot of exposition existed in this story, if you notice that, So, Ethan, what was the movie about in general? I mean, how did Batman get the moniker of ninja, essentially?
Sure. So, first off, I just want to say, in terms of not explaining a lot, I think since this is like maybe the 30th in the line of Batman animated movies.
That's fair.
I'm pretty sure they're just like kind of banking on the fact that like all these characters, and there's nothing like so insane about it. It's just they wanted to basically, as far as I could tell, like basically be an exposition of all the different styles of anime that come out of Japan, and then also
that was very true.
It was like in general culture, like overload for Japan, and specifically the Warring States era.
Yeah, and they did a really good job about showing just every style of animation you could probably get, and all the genre tropes of a bunch of different genres, and they did it back to back very beautifully, pretty seamless too for what they were trying to do. It was quite good. So
right, so super quickly, basically what the movie is about is the first scene you see Batman is coming to Arkham Asylum, and you see Gorilla Grodd basically is creating this thing called Time-Space Quake.
Yeah, Space-Time Quake Engine.
Yeah.
It sounds like a badass name because really was.
For whatever reason, there's also 4 or 5 other basically A-list villains.
Yeah, they were the OGs, the classics, like Penguin and Two-Face.
Yeah, Penguin, Two-Face,
Poison
Ivy, Deathstroke, and then obviously Joker's got to be involved.
Joker, Mr. J.
Joker-san.
Joker-san, Mr. J.
Anyway, so they all get kind of warped with Batman and his clan of other bat people.
Batkin.
Yeah. And also Catwoman was there as well.
And somehow Alfred? I'm actually
Alfred.
confused about that one.
I'm still not...
How did he even get roped in? Because he was in Arkham Asylum is where everything got transported.
Yeah, I don't quite understand exactly how he got pulled into it. But anyway, they get pulled back to feudal Warring States, Japan.
Yeah.
And since Batman was the last one to go through the warp, he arrives basically 2 months later.
Yes, so everyone, it wasn't 2 months, it was 2 years.
Was it 2
years?
Yeah,
a lot of people were, because that's where like Joker managed, and all these people managed to build their empires in these provinces.
Sure, 2 years.
Yeah.
So basically, each of those bad villains became like feudal lords of an area during the Warring States. So, and the visuals for the explanation was gorgeous.
That was actually super cool, and I think that's a good segue into the visuals aspect. A lot of it, I'm talking maybe 90% of the movie was CGI, and y'all know right now I have talked about how I am not a big CGI fan. I don't think a lot of people in the anime community are, but this was done with movie money. That real big, thick DC pockets. So the animation actually wasn't that bad despite being CGI, I have to admit. Although there were moments when they had hand-drawn shit, and I gotta tell you, I kind of wish the whole thing was like hand-drawn. Maybe not exactly that watercolor thing we'll get to, but there were moments where it was hand-drawn. The effects were hand-drawn, the smoke, the bombs, the explosion. That stuff was hand-drawn, and that was really, really clean. And I don't know. I kind of wish it was hand-drawn. I don't see why it couldn't have been,
Yeah, so when we were talking about it during the movie, the thing that I brought up was probably, this is the most, in my opinion, expensive of the DC animation movies that I've seen.
For sure.
Just like with all the different art styles, animators they literally had to go to Japan and get a bunch of people who work on pretty seminary works of art, specifically JoJo.
Yes, so that's actually very fascinating. This cast, both the people who produced it and that were in it, big A-list stars. I mean, who was the guy who did the directing? Was it
Junpei Mizusaki or something like that.
So he basically has nothing else to his name except for this movie, a movie in 2005 called Zoo, and he is a producer on JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. So that kind of shined through in a lot of these scenes in this movie. It felt very JoJo. It was like, you are the one who will be fooled. Oh, you're approaching me. That kind of shit.
Yeah.
To the point where we had some JoJo voice actors actually in this one.
Right. So I think if you are a sub fan in anime, you will absolutely love the voice actors for the sub of this movie.
That cast slapped.
I mean, it was like a completely star-studded cast. You'll notice a lot of voices that you've heard before.
You have Dio from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. You have Sasuke from Naruto, adult Sasuke. You have Jiraiya, who is Alfred. You have Beerus. Beerus from Dragonball Super was Batman. That was rad. I mean, and these voices were great. I mean, it was a good time, and we actually went and pivoted and looked at dub for the Joker, and it wasn't that good. I mean,
right. So like from a like DC animation standard of the English dub, this was way downhill from normal. Yeah,
I was actually kind of shocked because I guess I grew up on a Mark Hamill Joker, which is the best voice Joker of all time, in my opinion. And it was kind of good to see that sub made such a big impact in terms of quality over dubbed on this one. And it was produced all in Japan. So, I mean, back to the question of, is this anime? Does this anime? That already has the most traditional definition checkbox checked. It was made in Japan by a Japanese director who also did other work on big name animes. Boom. You have a voice cast that's from Japan who has done anime work. Boom. You have a definition here that is, for all intents and purposes, 100% anime. So why did I feel, Ethan, that this didn't feel like anime? Something about this didn't feel like anime to me. I'm trying to wrap my head around it because it's kind of, maybe it was the fact that it was Batman. Maybe this Western character, this Western superhero being in the anime format kind of made it disjunct, you know?
I think if you felt that way, it was all in your head.
Okay.
I think it's because you know that Batman is a Western character.
Maybe
and
that's it.
He was transported to this basically Eastern style, because I don't agree at all that it felt disjointed. I think the one thing that was weird was like modern tech back then, but that is like fairly common throughout anime. So I don't understand why you would feel that specifically.
So I was just bringing it up as a hypothetical because my actual feelings on this movie are, it felt like a good anime movie, but not a good Batman movie. It felt like a really good anime movie. If I can remove myself from the Batman character being in it, you could have replaced it with some other dude, like just some other main character, and I think it would have still worked. Take all of the Batman IP out of it and put like other random folk, and you probably would have a solid anime movie on your hands, and it still was a solid anime movie. It didn't feel like a good Batman movie to me. It was a good movie. It just didn't feel like a good Batman movie to me, you know?
Yes and no. Like, I think this movie would have suffered greatly if it was not Batman IP, because they were really like hoping you knew a lot of stuff already.
That was maybe that was part of it for me, is that I'm not a diehard DC fan. I'm not a diehard Batman fan. I do like Batman. He's a cool character, but maybe my lore game on Batman isn't very up to snuff. So I think for you, as someone who's way more versed in Batman as an IP, you probably had more of like callbacks and fun time with them homaging things, you know?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously, I think that's definitely the main point of maybe difference for you is, I mean, for me, the only issue was it was kind of a weak story just in general.
Yeah, it felt pretty weak.
But I mean, if you think about like one issue of a comic book, generally it's like pretty weak.
Yeah, and I think that's
supposed to be like long. It's not like a long standing story, right?
Right.
They basically had to tie up the pretty bow as quickly as they could in this one essentially extended episode.
And they did so in some real kind of ass-ploy ways that weren't bad. They were just funny. I mean, this the story at some point, all of these provinces and all these classic Batman villains all have their own house mechs.
Right.
That was
so they all built like mechs into their castles,
which was insane. And then they all just like turned them on, and they all looked, again, the character designs in this were really cool. I did like how they portrayed the Joker. He had this sweet Fu Manchu mustache on, and all the feudal Japan style costumes for all of these villains were pretty cool. But the house mechs, man, that shit got me. That was just like, okay. But that's how they were trying to rope in, like, an homage to Japanese mechs. I get it. I get it.
I don't know. Maybe I saw a different movie than you did, but I think it was like pure homage. Like, I think they used the IP that they had at their disposal to just kind of like basically tie up the story. But I think it is mostly just to show as many different homages as they could in a small period of time. Like, it was an hour and a half movie, maybe a little bit less.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's like, it looked a little Miyazaki in some regards. Like,
it did have that moments. Those backgrounds were beautiful.
Yeah, beautiful backgrounds, but also like kind of the mech coming from a stationary building and stuff like that. That's very like Miyazaki. Like,
and it did sound like
what they call it when they like design vehicles and stuff from something.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll get what you're saying. It sounds like I'm knocking the animation. I actually was surprised at how good it was. Seeing the CGI, I always have this initial recoil of, ooh, CGI, fuck, no, please turn it off, thank you. No, but as I started watching it, they did a really, really good job. They went all over the spectrum of animation. There was an entire scene where it looked entirely like a watercolor painting, and it was like animated frame for frame, pure Sakuga, great stuff. I mean, and there was a moment where they used animation to show Batman's resolve in feudal Japan, where he's looking over, every background looked like a Japanese painting. It had a pattern, it felt stagnant, it didn't feel like your classic anime backgrounds. And then when he admitted that I cannot fight the Joker with my 21st century tech, this era has its strength too. Essentially, the background changed from a painting to this beautiful anime landscape. I'm talking Dr. Stone quality backgrounds, maybe even like, Promised Neverland, and like...
I was thinking like Made in Abyss.
Made in Abyss, that's it. That's the one I was thinking of. And I totally said Promised Neverland, but it's whatever. Made in Abyss style backgrounds of quality, and it just totally puts you kind of locked into the movie at that point. Like, it was incredible to me. So they did not spare any expense on going ham on that animation. Hamination. Very much.
Indeed.
Animation.
Yeah, but I mean, so like from a story perspective, obviously we're saying it's a little bit weak, but I mean, they use like common tropes throughout the like DC universe where, constantly Batman will be foiled by having to go save somebody.
That was quite clever,
right?
Yeah,
and then it's good. Always like something bad will happen as a result because Joker knows him very well, and like he very much preys on that constantly.
They did do a good job,
and they do that throughout all DC kind of related comics, animation, right. Whatever. I mean, they basically are meant for each other, and that they're complete yin and yang.
Yes, and there was no shortage of him playing on that. There was a scene where he said, I'm going to drop my hand of my big house mech and it's going to crush a woman. And when he goes and tries to save her, that woman is actually Harley Quinn, and basically tricked him once again. So that's like, okay. Then, and it's funny because that took me by surprise. So even though I know that that's a trope, I was like, oh, okay, that's pretty cool. They had some moments where I was stunned. A little bit gobsmacked.
Yeah, so like I didn't know that was gonna be her, but I mean that's so common.
You get it after the fact.
I definitely was not like surprised when they showed her as Harley Quinn. I was like, oh really?
I was like, oh okay, that makes sense. That's smart. That's clever. I'm into it. Okay.
But I mean, at the end, they play off the trope of where Joker consistently is trying to get Batman to kill him.
Yes.
And like no matter the era Batman's in, like he is just still the seminal hero, and that he will not kill. And like I don't know. Obviously, that's like his biggest downside in a lot of ways is that he doesn't have like it's not that he doesn't have what it takes to do it.
Yes.
It's just that I think he's trying to live a different path, but obviously it continually gets him in trouble. And like in terms of Batman as an IP, that is one like issue that I have with it.
Right.
It's like how many times you gotta let Joker get out of Arkham Asylum before you just like lobotomize him.
Exactly. I mean, I think Batman is where it's so influential around the world when it comes to the superhero concept that I believe that in My Hero Academia, where it's basically an homage to Western hero type stories and characters, where they get the whole concept of heroes have a tougher time because they have not only villains to defeat but people to save, where villains do not have that restriction. Batman is the epitome of that concept, where it's his whole world is I don't kill people, I save people, and I don't even kill villains. So he is the living embodiment of heroes have it tough. And this movie does not shy away from that, all the time Joker saying being a hero is a tough job. You got to save everybody, but I don't have that restriction. Right.
And then in that last clash between the two of them,
which was awesome, by the way.
So gorgeous.
Choreographed beautifully.
But you can tell very easily that Batman is just fighting to not lose, and Joker is fighting to kill him.
Right. He's fighting to go for the throat. And can we talk about, Ninja Batman in the end?
Sure.
He is full Naruto status right now.
Yeah,
he's throwing hand signs.
He's literally weaving hand signs with his chakra.
He's pulling like Itachi level genjutsu. He is like shadow. Like whenever he gets attacked, he bursts into a cloud of bats, and it's not crows, but it's pretty damn close.
It's totally like Itachi style.
It's like, holy shit, you're like a Jonin right now. Holy shit.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously we couldn't do any research into like specifically talking to these guys and asking where their influences are, but I think it's very clear they looked at Naruto.
They looked at Gundam.
Absolutely.
Yes.
They looked at Gundam. They looked at. I kind of felt like a little bit of what's that?
What you got?
Really famous movie.
No, you can do it.
What's Ghost in the Shell.
Yes, Ghost in the Shell for sure. And definitely they leveraged what's his name? Junpei. Junpei. They leveraged his work on JoJo for sure. There were some shots
absolutely.
in there that was so JoJo. The poses, the trickery. Basically, it all had that ho energy, and even having Dio as Gorilla Grodd was beautiful. And what a beautiful voice. So like that was when he big brained everybody. It felt right because it was Dio. it was totally him. So.
Right, and I think they did a lot for like the Japanese style of cinematography.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So I actually heard this from Mobile Suit Gundam.
Yeah.
Mobile Suit Breakdown podcast, where they said most of those early like anime directors couldn't get into the movie business like proper, so they did anime and they tried to make it as like cinematic as they could, as like basically a resume,
right?
And I feel like that style has carried very heavily into these like this era, right? So it's like very cinematic approach to anime in a lot of regards,
right?
But that is a good lord!
You got that. Today is not your linguistic day, dude.
Yeah,
it's okay.
It is a drastic dichotomy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm trying.
You brought it home. You brought it home.
I'm trying really
dichotomy.
Hard. To like the not English style, but the Western style of like DC animation type stuff.
For sure.
There's less of the cinematic. Like at one point you see Harley running to Joker, and it's literally like her feet in these like cell shading type, motion. And it's just, that's not something you see very often at all. There's very little like B-roll type situations.
Right.
In like, or framing, setting shots at all. It
all felt thought out.
Right.
Like it all felt very meticulous and
but it's
well
just
shot.
Definitely a big difference from what I would call like Western animation style, like DC animation.
Yeah. And maybe part of that is the CGI that allows for these dynamic camera angles. Part of it might be I think a large part of it is definitely the people doing the framing and the storyboarding and the shot work. But you're right. It's shots you would never see in classic Western animation because I think the emphasis is different. I mean, in they're both trying to tell a story, but you can tell with, Japanese animation and at least the style and the camera work that it's meant to be as dynamic as humanly possible while still being animated. With Western animation, it doesn't feel like it needs to be. Maybe that's what is that actually? Because maybe it's meant to be for kids. Like most animation in the West is kind of built for children. I would say the majority of it is for sure, right? So who gives a shit about camera angles when a 6-year-old's watching it, right? They don't have the brain power to know, oh, this is great framing. This is like the rule of thirds. It's incredible. That's not a thing.
Yeah, I think that has a lot to do with it, but I also think Japanese animators in general are given more leeway because they have potentially 1,000-episode long series, right?
True.
It's just not common at all for an English. God, I keep saying that.
English, yeah.
For a Western animation show or anything like that to get that many seasons,
right?
Unless it's like a kid show like that, or unless it's from like Japan originally, right?
Yeah.
So like,
but yeah,
when you're young, you kind of forget that Pokemon came from Japan.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? But like, so like that had 7 seasons or however many seasons, right? Like 300 eps, and that's not common at all.
Right.
For instance, one of the shows I like a ton is Gargoyles.
Yes, Gargoyles was lit.
Right,
dude.
like absolutely one of my top, shows of all time, at least from an animation, not animation, but from like an animated show standpoint.
Right.
But they had like I think 3 to 5 seasons max.
Yeah,
and it's much shorter seasons, shorter episodes, and stuff like that. And so like I just think that if you have potentially like the ticking clock, right, that a lot of I feel like Western shows have a even hard
hold on,
a clock that is
good?
I don't know, I'm losing my freaking gourd. A clock that is ticking even faster than Eastern.
I think, but I think it does come down to the audience and who they're tailoring to, because no 6-year-old is going on an internet forum talking about the shot composition of Gargoyles. They're talking about how sweet it was that he punched some dude. Like that's the level that you're getting at. No one's going on the framing of
fair.
No one's going on like online showing the framing of SpongeBob. Like that's not.
Yeah, but we're shonen schmucks and we're 27. You know what I mean?
Yeah, don't remind me.
I'm just saying, like.
But no, I get what you're saying.
I feel like it defies age boundaries a lot more for Eastern. Shows than I guess Western, from what you're saying.
Yeah, it's just a different end game, and I think anime as a medium, as a style, understands that the audience it's trying to target is one that has enough wherewithal to look at it and understand what makes it beautiful to watch. So it's understand the sakuga, they understand all this stuff, because if they knew that the audience didn't care, then they wouldn't put their money right there. They wouldn't put their money in it, And these movies, they put money into directors and producers and writers that make stories that are both visually and narratively compelling. And it's like, it comes back what you said, the cinematography and the choreography in this movie in Batman Ninja was beautiful. Like, beautiful. There were shots where basically the one where Batman wakes up after getting injured, his mask being cracked is like in the foreground, and then it looks as if a camera lens is zooming away to Bruce behind it. And that's kind of the thing you would get in a real life movie.
Right.
But they took the time to do that kind of shot in animation because they understand the audience and the medium, because the medium is built to have shit like that. So in another way, again, coming back to the main question, does it anime? Yes, it's built for an older audience, and anime has always kind of been that way.
Yes and no.
What?
I mean,
okay.
built for an older audience, I think is such a strange distinction to make, because I think all the most famous shows in the world are shonens.
I guess that's true. Yeah.
I don't think that's a good point in terms of like saying, is anime for kids, right? And then is cartoons for kids? Because these are very specifically like not raunchier, but like more grotesque in a lot of ways, more visceral, like these DC animation, right? Because that's DC's thing. They're kind of like a darker version of like a Marvel type movie, right?
So let me rephrase, because I think you're right. I'm
trying to jump down your throat.
You are
I'm
a little bit, but
I'm having a real bad linguistic day.
But you're doing a good job, because there was truth to what you said. I think shonen as a
shit.
Shut up. Shonen as a genre, they say it's built for 8 to 18. Boys of 8 to 18, and it's interesting that even though these shows are built for by definition for quote unquote kids, they are willing to push boundaries on violence and like sexual themes and stuff like that. It's maybe because anime trusts that it's not an age thing. It's attracting, an audience that is maybe mature enough to handle that age indiscriminate, That might be more of what I'm getting at, is that it's understanding the audience has a little bit more, awareness about what it's watching, where American cartoons that are specifically built for children are trying to rein it in real hard to stuff like that, because there's a lot of like sexual jokes and like SpongeBob and stuff that go over kids' head and stuff like that. Naturally.
I mean, like Disney and Nickelodeon, maybe not Disney much anymore, but
right.
They used to be very, very like split on like kid content and non-kid content.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, at least from what I've seen, there's just a lot more like censorship laws in, America versus Japan, right? And I think, which is really odd to me, because they are like a more, what I would consider like structured, regimented type of a...
You would think the censorship would be strong.
Like, country, right?
Maybe it's not stronger, it's just different. Yeah,
right, maybe. But it's just very strange, the like very like vast differences between the two countries in terms of like our kid content and their kid content, because I think you could still say that those shonen shows and those shoujo shows are kid content as well,
which is fascinating, right? Because some of them say like bastard and bitch and like they're cussing like up a storm in those
very
shows.
Like it's more of an adult version of like a kid show, which I think, it just is a very interesting difference between the two, like cultures in general. But in terms of like an IP, right?
Yeah.
I think you take, Batman and all his comics and stuff, and you put it up against something like a One Piece or one of those big like seminary works in either of the two styles.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you can draw a lot of like similarities between the IPs. I think the basis of all the stories are very, very similar.
I would agree.
I mean, like all stories are basically the same, right?
Right. They all do. They all have a certain.
But I think it's cool, specifically in this work that we watched, to get them to draw out some of those within the Batman like kind of universe.
It's very true, because I mean they didn't have to go very out of their way to make it. Like I said, it didn't feel to me like a proper Batman movie, but it doesn't mean that they didn't stick within the IP's rules and laws and stuff. Yeah, they did get transported back into feudal Japan. Yes, they made house mechs somehow in just 2 years from literal sticks and stones to actual incredible technology that doesn't exist
today.
And Gatling guns. And there were some moments in this movie that were quite funny. They made a monkey mech. There was a mech made out of monkeys. Let's just talk about that real quick.
It was suited by Batman bats.
It's funnily bats came around the monkey mech and then made an old school looking Batman mech giant god thing, and it punched the shit out of Super House Mech that combined like a like a Power Rangers combination. So I think
it was wild. It
was wild, but that's also, after thinking about it and chatting about this movie, that is also why I watch anime and what makes anime a medium all of its own, because you can portray the most wild shit you can even imagine in a pretty cool and not so haha kitty way. This movie did a really good job at showing not necessarily all of anime has to offer, but how it can offer it in the most wild way possible, So again, back to the main question, Ethan, does it anime?
I think this is firmly anime.
Yes.
I mean, they specifically were going after that. They marketed it as basically Batman anime.
Right.
Like in the actual description, it says like this anime work and things like that. And like obviously they went out and they got Junpei from, JoJo.
Yeah.
So like they literally went out to try to accomplish something like that. And I personally love to see it, because it means, they are obviously recognizing, Eastern animation as like obviously, a large Goliath that it is now, right?
And using it as a way to tell a more westernized story with not necessarily a westernized story, but a westernized character that's been beloved and iconic in the Western space, putting it in the lens of anime. And like I said before, for me, something didn't feel like anime, but I wanted to suss out what it was, and I think it is because it used such an iconic Western character, and I think it's just unusual to see something like that baked into a format in a medium like anime. And once you kind of reconcile the two, it was a very enjoyable work. I had a really good time with it despite it being CG, but there's no getting around it. It's anime on paper and also very spiritually. If you watch it and feel like this still doesn't feel like anime, maybe remove yourself. Remember, it's the character maybe. I don't think it's because the style is off or the writing is off. All of that is 100% anime to a T. I think it's because Batman is in the movie. Honest to God.
Yeah, and what's funny about that is like Batman, and this is what I was trying to get at a little bit earlier, as a character and like people in his universe aren't all that different from like, Japanese shonen type heroes and stuff like that. So like it is interesting to me to always see that kind of, disparity between those two types of IP. Mm-hmm. But what I do really, really love about this is that they're going out there and they're showing, a little tiny slice and taste of the Japanese culture to maybe a comic book only type gate-kept community.
There it is. Yeah.
And I'm hoping there's going to be more crossover in terms of, fandoms, because I think it'd be really cool if, there was deals between like One Piece and Batman or something.
Just some kind of weird, super weird Western Eastern crossover and that kind of thing.
Yeah, like imagine in Wano if for whatever reason they walk up and it's like Joker, Batman, and all them like
the
fighting.
Batwing rolls in while they're at sea and just lands on their ship, and it's just like, oh hey Batman, what's good?
Yeah,
Time to start the mini Bat arc.
Obviously that's not good, but I'm just saying.
right.
Like I think that would be really cool, and I mean I would really hope that they kind of go after some more of those type of crossover homage type situations, and maybe vice versa too.
It'd be pretty rad to see like Superman or like a Marvel character pop up in My Hero Academia, since it literally is kind of a taking inspiration heavily from those stories. To have one of them kind of pop in and be a hero would be fucking rad.
It'd be kind of cool if it was like old world superheroes was the ones that we recognize over here, and then like we're talking way in the future or whatever happens to be this quirk situation.
Yeah, I
know like
it's a quirky deal.
Patrick, and potentially you have that Charlotte. It might have been you.
That I have this tinfoily fan theory that Charlotte is the prequel to My Hero Academia, and the main character in Charlotte is All for One, because he has the power to take other people's abilities, right. And then he goes a little crazy because he takes so many, and then he just grows up to be this psychopathic villain killer dude. So yeah, so that's totally tinfoil. That's not in any way related, but it's real.
No, guys, I actually think that has obviously it's not legit because they didn't say anything, but I think it easily could have been. It easily could have been.
Yeah,
high probability that's accurate.
Hell yeah. So I mean, it's cool to see a character that, is beloved like Batman show up in a genre that obviously me and Ethan feel very strongly about because anime is amazing.
Oh, we actually hate anime, so
yeah, we're just doing this just to, pass the time.
Our 50 episodes are for nothing.
I think, I don't know.
What do you think this got rated from an American standpoint, the IMBD score?
The IMBD score?
Yes.
I think, so if I were to rank it myself, I would give it a clean 82 Monkey Mechs out of 100. I think it's a great anime work. I think it has its flaws. I think it's a little bit fast-paced. I think it maybe kind of drops the ball on some exposition stuff and plot, but it is a joy to set your eyes on despite it being CG, and the choreography and camera work is superb. So, and the character designs are super, super awesome. So I think on IMBD, maybe 8.3 or 5, something like that. What's it at?
So this very much shows the difference between Mal and IMDb.
Okay.
So it has 15,000 reviews, which isn't a ton, but I mean, this is kind of like an obscure site to do reviews on, right?
Right. It's a movie too.
But it has a 5.6 out of 10.
No way. Is that on my anime list?
No, it's obviously it's not on my anime list.
Oh, it might be. It might be. IMDb. It's got a 5.
So that's what I mean is like when we look at those shows, like even the worst of 2019, and they get a 5.2. But it's just like there's a strange bump on that.
Who do you think is ranking this? Anime fans or DC/Batman
100%
fans?
is Batman fans.
That's probably what it is. And that's what it goes back to what I was saying. I don't think it's a good Batman movie. I think it's a good anime movie.
Should I read this review? It's a 3-star.
Is it? You got like one good line in there somewhere? Or yeah, give me like the first 2 lines. What?
I love Batman. I love anime. I love cheesy anime conversations, but I hate an emptied character and script despite a huge potential. Batman
so this is the guy who's a fan of everything. He's a fan of all of it.
Batman is never about his gadgets. Look at the Arkham Knight game. Red Hood thinks Batman is all about his gadget and nothing without them. But Batman proves him wrong with his gigantic intellect and training. Granted, he relies on his gadgets on his day-to-day operations. However, he never despairs when he loses any of them. On the contrary, he willingly sacrifices his gadgets and tools like they are nothing because he is the weapon.
Here's the thing. The one thing I did not like about this movie adamantly is my favorite thing about Batman is because he is a world-class detective. He is big brain epitomized. So I wanted to see more. When I see Batman, I want to see him do some sweet detective work too. I want all Batman. And this did not have any of that. Like, he was not... and the thing is, he couldn't even figure out all the shit on his own about feudal Japan. You would think one of the smartest men in the world, essentially in that universe, could figure this shit out. And he needed all the other Robins to help him do it, right? That seems a little odd to me.
He came 2 years later, but okay.
Right,
also,
but...
the last line this guy has is very poignant, and I think I actually agree really heavily now that I've read this.
All right, give it to me.
If anyone says it's an interpretation of Batman, an interpretation is about nuances, settings, surroundings, not the main subject. If you take what makes Batman out of Batman, it's not an interpretation.
Interesting.
And I actually agree with him.
Yeah.
So this was very much like a Batman IP, but I agree with you, very little Batman soul to it.
Yeah. It didn't have that Batman energy. It had anime energy all up and down.
Yeah, it had
for sure.
So much anime energy.
And it's
and
good
so
for what
here's
it was.
My question.
Yes.
Do you think it might be because it's a Japanese guy doing the directing
and really didn't have too much
doesn't
basis?
Have a grasp on Batman as a character?
Honestly, yeah. I think that's honestly what it was. It's as if somebody gave you a 3-page essay written by a 10th grader about Batman, and that's all the information you had to go on. Based on, aside from not having hundreds and hundreds of issues of comics, just one essay. And then like, okay, make a Batman movie. Well, I don't really know Batman, but I know anime, so giddy up, motherfuckers. We're doing a Batman anime movie.
Yeah, I think I can agree there, but I do still think it was probably like 78 to 82, like you said.
Yeah, it really, and I think that's what it was. I didn't watch it for, and we weren't necessarily watching it for a Batman
movie.
experience.
Yeah, totally agree.
We weren't watching it for a Batman because the question we were asking is, does it anime, not does it Batman? You know, so when we do,
very good.
So we're watching this, looking for, can I qualify this work as anime? And
does it movie?
Does it movie? Well, yes, I guess it does
yeah,
movie.
I mean, yeah,
it does movie. But yeah, so we're definitely watching these shows, and in the future we'll do this again. It's works that are anime adjacent. We're not necessarily watching it. Is it a good X movie or a good anime this or an anime that? Is it anime, period? So I guess we liked it for what it was trying to be.
Yeah, and I gotta say, like, just closing thoughts, very, very gorgeous. One of the most beautiful, like, movies I've seen, and definitely in comparison to, like, Batman's, like, animations that I've also watched, it is the most gorgeous out of all of them by far.
I will,
because I think
yes.
it is that difference of like, this is for anime and this is for Batman type situation.
Right.
So I think that's very clear to see. If you're a Batman fan, I think you still watch this because it's just fun to see Batman in a different setting.
Yes. And I think for me, it enters into a short list on how to do CGI right. You know, how to do CG in anime as a medium within this overarching medium right. And maybe requires a lot of money. It maybe requires a big old fat DC deep pockets, but if done right, it can really sell a lot of good points when it comes to a visual storytelling mechanic. So final thoughts. Great anime movie. Not the best Batman movie. You will have a good time with it. It's not worth a rewatch. But if you got an extra hour and change, why not? It's a good time. You're not going to hate it. At least I don't think so, unless you're a big Batman fan.
I think it probably is worth at least one rewatch. Right. I mean, Jesus Christ.
Sorry. I mean, I don't know if I'd go back to watch it.
Told him to get on his knees and blasted it. No, I think it's a great show, great movie, I guess. And then, just in general, I enjoyed it. I like this kind of topic, and I can't wait to do more in the future. Yep. Hopefully, y'all at home or watching on YouTube enjoyed this.
Thank you so much for watching.
Please like, comment, and subscribe.
Yep, smash that bell, baby.
So that you are notified anytime we upload a new video.
If you just want to experience our voices and not our faces and background, you can go to Apple, Google, Spotify, Stitcher, CastBox, or anywhere else you get your anime podcast fix.
And obviously, as per usual, these come out every Monday on those podcasting platforms.
Yes, if you want to get a little more visual action, you can go to our Instagram at Weebology.podcast. We got memes on news as well. So we're trying to mix it up and not post as much so we don't get shadow banned again. They kind of freaked at us because we're posting too much dank content.
Legit, it's because we were like, they thought we were robots. We were so robotically crushing it.
They're like, no, you guys need to sit in the timeout corner real quick. And drop us a line at on our email, weebologypodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah, or message us on Instagram, Twitter, whatever you want to do.
You want a show?
At WeebologyP.
You want us to watch a show? All you got to do is DM us, baby. That's all you got to do.
Or email.
Or call us up. I don't know how you have my phone number.
Don't do that. Actually, don't do that.
Yeah, that's a little weird. But I think they got learned today, dude.
They definitely got learned. So, and, thank you guys for watching. This has been your Professor Ethan.
This has also been your Professor Ricky. And this has been Weebology.
Hiya!
Deuces! Hiya!